Tell me then, has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined since you've been Secretary of Homeland Security? As we've seen women dragged through their streets by their hair and thrown into unmarked cars, people chased through the fields and factories where they work, public executions happening in our streets. Has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined?
Yes, they have.
How many?
I don't know the number. I can get that for you if
Do you
you'd
think
like
that number
me
is
to.
important?
I think that it's wise and smart, and what we're doing is accurate according to the law by doing those internal investigations through the process that's set up.
Tonight, we examine the sworn testimony of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem before the Senate Judiciary Committee. It is a record of undeniable obstruction. It is a record of a federal agency operating outside constitutional law. We will look at the exact words spoken under oath and the documented evidence. The facts are not in dispute. Let us examine the case. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem claims that the Department of Homeland Security operates strictly within the confines of the law to keep communities safe. She claims her enforcement officers are merely executing targeted operations based on criminal backgrounds.
Did Mr. Lopez have a criminal record? In 1995, he pled to a lesser nonviolent charge. But do you see the pain
I
that
do
somebody...
see the pain,
Okay.
and I wish people would do things correctly. If they're not in legal status in this country, they can return home. We will pay for them to return home.
Yeah.
I hope he got the $2,600 he could have gotten.
Do you think that makes up for not being with his family?
It helps because we have agreements with these countries where they are helping to facilitate housing.
It was a
and
nonviolent
training,
crime, Secretary.
But then he gets the chance to come back the right way. Now that he's waited until he's been detained and deported, he will never get the chance to come back to the United States.
She claims the people her agency has killed and detained were dealt with accurately according to the law. That is a lie. The official record proves it is a lie. The video evidence proves it is a lie. Her own testimony before the United States Senate Judiciary Committee proves it is a lie. When federal agents kill American citizens, and the secretary tells the public those citizens were domestic terrorists without evidence, we are not dealing with simple spin. We are dealing with a deliberate falsification of the public record by a linked authority of the Trump administration. That is a lie, and it is told to protect state power from public accountability. Let us define the lie precisely. We must look at the exact words used by the authority. Secretary Noem is the highest authority overseeing immigration enforcement. After the shooting deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good in Minneapolis, Secretary Noem categorized those deceased individuals as domestic terrorists. She claimed they engaged in acts of domestic terrorism. During her sworn testimony, Senator Amy Klobuchar confronted Secretary Noem on this claim. Senator Klobuchar asked her about specifically calling them domestic terrorists without evidence. Secretary Noem stated under oath, quote, "I did not call him a domestic terrorist. I said it appeared to be an incident of," unquote. Furthermore, Secretary Noem stated, quote, "I absolutely strive to provide factual information and will continue to do that," unquote. She claimed, quote, "What we are doing is accurate according to the law," unquote. This is the defined lie.
Public executions happening in our streets. Has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined?
Yes, they have.
How many?
I don't know the number. I can get that for you if
Do you
you'd
think
like
that number
me
is
to.
important?
I think that it's wise and smart, and what we're doing is accurate according to the law by doing those internal investigations through the process that's set up. There's an Office of Professional Responsibility that does the investigation, and decisions are brought before the National Use of Force Board, and they review each incident as objectively outside of that law enforcement encounter and then give a decision.
The highest law enforcement official claims factual accuracy while evidence completely contradicts her words. We turn to the forensic evidence. The sources provide concrete facts that dismantle the claims made by the secretary. First, we examine the video evidence from the Minneapolis shootings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. The video evidence quickly contradicted Secretary Noem's assertion that they engaged in domestic terrorism. The video did not show Alex Preddy brandishing a weapon. The video evidence proves the secretary delivered false information to the public regarding the deaths of American citizens. Second, we look at internal communications. Axios reported Secretary Noem told a source, quote, "Everything I have done, I have done at the direction of the president and Stephen, unquote. This refers to the president and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. Under oath, she claimed anonymous sources relayed the information. Third, we examine illegal detentions. Senator Dick Durbin presented the case of Ruben Torres. Torres is a Mexican national detained by federal authorities while his daughter fought cancer. A federal judge ruled the detention of Ruben Torres was illegal. The judge found his due process rights were violated.
My question for you is, do you see families like Miguel Lopez, who was a neighbor of mine in Livermore, California? Miguel had lived in Livermore for over 30 years. He raised his 3 children in Livermore. His youngest is a senior at a local high school, just finished his football season. Miguel worked at a winery where my wife and I were married almost 10 years ago. Miguel had done everything that was asked of him, went to every immigration proceeding that he was supposed to go to, and in April was put in handcuffs as he was following the orders of the court and going to the proceedings. He was arrested and sent to Mexico.
This ruling proves the agency is not acting accurately according to the law. Furthermore, Senator Richard Blumenthal introduced 3 United States citizens arrested by immigration agents. Marimar Martinez was shot 5 times by an immigration agent. Leonardo Garcia Venegas and Javier Ramirez were detained despite telling agents they were American citizens. This evidence proves the agency arrests and uses violent force against American citizens. We must understand how these pieces of evidence reveal a system of power and control. When the secretary labels dead citizens as domestic terrorists without evidence, she exercises the ultimate power of the state. She uses the massive public relations apparatus of the federal government to control the narrative before victims' families can speak. This abuse of power shields federal agents from immediate criminal scrutiny.
Objectively outside of that law enforcement encounter and then give a decision for
Has
it.
anyone been fired? Has anyone lost their job?
There could be.
Well, I'm not asking if it could be, I'm asking, has anyone been fired?
I'm certain that they have. That happens once in a while when there is a need for someone to be
For
held
conduct related
accountable.
to enforcement actions?
We hold our law enforcement officers accountable and are grateful that they serve, that they put their lives on the line, and also recognize that when these situations that they follow their training and the legality of the course to how they interact with the public.
Yield back.
When a federal judge rules Ruben Torres was illegally detained, we see the raw application of unchecked power. The state took a man away from his dying child and ignored due process. That is authoritarian control over human life. When American citizens are detained and shot, as Marimar Martinez was shot 5 times, the state uses lethal force to maintain dominance. Senator Cory Booker correctly identified this dynamic. He stated, "The agency is terrorizing children, breaking into homes, and violating rights to peacefully protest." The state utilizes an aggressive footprint, keeping nearly 650 agents in Minnesota to project control over local jurisdictions. Furthermore, the secretary claimed the Department of Government Efficiency discovered software installed on her devices by her own employees to spy on her. This indicates a fractured agency where power and control are contested internally. The strongest defense argument presented by Secretary Noem is the necessity of strict law enforcement to protect the homeland in a dangerous environment. Senator Chuck Grassley articulated this defense, stating, "Officers should never be threatened while enforcing laws." Secretary Noem testified immigration and customs enforcement agents face a dangerous environment. She claimed her department documented an 8,000% increase in death threats against officers. She argued that in operations across the country, there are times when United States citizens may be arrested until their identity is confirmed. She stated her department simply enforces the laws Congress passed. We must dismantle this defense using the law and the sources. The United States Constitution guarantees due process. A federal judge already ruled the detention of Ruben Torres violated due process. You cannot claim to be merely enforcing the law when a federal judge rules your actions break the law. You cannot claim arresting American citizens is just a temporary measure when agents shoot an American citizen 5 times. Furthermore, Representative Eric Swalwell presented the case of Miguel Lopez. Lopez lived in the United States for 30 years, with a nonviolent lesser charge from 1995. He went to his required immigration proceeding. He was arrested and deported over a judge's objection that he stay in the United States. Taking action over the objection of a sitting judge is a direct violation of judicial authority. The defense falls apart when agency actions consistently violate constitutional rights and judicial orders. Let us conduct a brief legal education on the separation of powers and civil rights. In the United States, the executive branch enforces the law, but it must obey the judicial branch. A judge determines the legality of an action. When an immigration judge objects to a deportation and the executive branch executes the deportation anyway, the executive branch ignores the court. Additionally, due process is a constitutional right. It means the government cannot take away your freedom without following strict legal procedures. When a federal judge rules due process was violated, it means the government acted illegally. Administrative warrants are another crucial concept. Secretary Noem defended the use of administrative warrants. An administrative warrant is not signed by a judge. It is an internal executive branch document. It does not carry the same constitutional weight as a criminal warrant signed by an independent judge. When the government uses an internal document to bypass courts, it operates on the very edge of constitutional legality. It is time for a professional judgment on the responsibility and fitness of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Based purely on the evidentiary record of this hearing, she is fundamentally unfit to hold this office. Senator Thom Tillis delivered a devastating performance evaluation. He called her leadership a disaster. He noted she makes bad decisions in the heat of the moment. He highlighted her previous admissions of killing a 14-month-old puppy and a goat because she lacked discipline to train them. He correctly likened that documented lack of judgment to her disastrous handling of the operations in Minneapolis. She rushes to lethal conclusions. She rushes to label dead citizens as terrorists without evidence. She repeatedly declines to apologize to grieving families. Senator Cory Booker stated, "She is either utterly incompetent or violating laws with impunity." The record supports both conclusions. A cabinet secretary who oversees armed federal agents must possess unquestionable integrity and restraint. Secretary Noem demonstrates neither. She is entirely unfit for the power she wields. This judgment is supported by an expert authority stack of sitting United States senators from both political parties. We have Senator Thom Tillis, a Republican, explicitly calling her leadership a disaster and vowing to block nominees until she addresses concerns about stonewalling investigations. We have Senator Cory Booker, a Democrat, demanding she step down, be removed by the president, or be impeached by Congress for violating separation of powers and civil rights. We have Senator Dick Durbin stating on the record that under her leadership, the Homeland Security Department has been devoid of any moral compass or respect for the rule of law. We have the Department of Homeland Security Officer of Inspector General documenting 10 separate instances under Secretary Noem's leadership where investigators were misled and unable to pursue critically important matters. This is a unified stack of bipartisan and independent investigative authorities identifying a catastrophic failure of leadership. We must now address institutional accountability. The institutions designed to check this power are facing massive obstruction. The Inspector General is being stonewalled by the department. Senator Grassley noted the Inspector General was prevented from briefing Congress on a classified Transportation Security Administration report due to a department memo. The Government Accountability Office has been unable to secure access to relevant personnel to review those same security issues. This is a systemic enforcement failure. The agency is locking out its own watchdogs. While federal courts have intervened in isolated cases, like ruling the detention of Ruben Torres illegal, the courts cannot manage the daily operations of armed agents. The institutional guardrails are breaking down under deliberate obstruction by the executive branch. The procedural consequences are clearly defined by the rules of the United States Senate. Senator Thom Tillis stated his procedural response on the record. He will place a hold on any en bloc nominations. He will deny quorum and markups in as many committees as he can until he receives a response regarding the stonewalling of internal investigations. Furthermore, The Department of Homeland Security remains in a partial funding shutdown. The House Rules Committee is considering a measure to fund the department, but it requires a 60-vote threshold in the Senate. Democrats stated they will not fund the department without structural changes to immigration enforcement. The procedural reality is a legislative blockade. The agency will continue to operate under severe financial strain. The secretary will face a House Judiciary Committee oversight hearing next. There is no immediate resolution. There is only the slow, grinding mechanism of congressional leverage. The standoff continues.